I still remember the day my boss looked at me across the glass table and said, without anger or mercy, "You are useless here." The words were calm, almost casual, but they landed on my heart like a heavy stone. I nodded, pretending to understand, pretending not to feel the sting, pretending I was stronger than I was. That evening, as I walked home through crowded streets, the noise of the city could not drown out the echo of his voice, and I wondered how a person could feel so small in a world that never seems to slow down. I came from a modest family where dreams were built on patience and effort rather than shortcuts. My parents taught me that dignity comes from honest work, not from titles or applause. When I first joined the company, I carried those lessons like a shield. I believed hard work would speak for itself, that sincerity would always be recognized. I was wrong, at least in the beginning. In the office, speed mattered more than care, confidence more than quiet dedication, and I struggled to find my place among people who seemed to belong naturally. Every morning, I arrived early, organizing files, checking emails, preparing reports again and again to avoid mistakes. Still, errors happened. Sometimes they were small, sometimes they were noticed, and sometimes they were used as proof that I did not deserve the position. My boss rarely raised his voice, which made his criticism feel colder. He compared me to others, praised their achievements in meetings, and reminded me that I was replaceable. Each word chipped away at my confidence, but I stayed silent, believing patience was my only weapon. Outside the office, my life was simple. I shared a small apartment with my younger sister, who was still studying. She believed in me with a faith that felt undeserved. Every night, she asked about my day, and I smiled and said it was fine, even when it was not. I did not want my struggle to become her worry. Love, I learned, often means protecting others from the weight you carry yourself. One evening, after a particularly harsh meeting, I sat alone on a park bench, watching the sky turn orange and then gray. That was when I met Aisha. She was feeding stray cats, speaking to them softly, as if they understood every word. There was a calmness in her presence that made the world feel less heavy. We talked about small things at first, about the weather, about the cats, about how the city never truly sleeps. I did not tell her about my job or my boss. I just listened, and for the first time in weeks, I felt heard without having to explain myself. Our meetings became a quiet habit. We talked after work, sharing stories of our families, our hopes, and our fears. Aisha worked at a community library, earning little but giving much. She believed that kindness was never wasted, even when it went unnoticed. Her words slowly softened the bitterness growing inside me. She never pushed me to speak about my struggles, but somehow, with her, silence felt safe. At work, however, things did not improve. My boss assigned me tasks no one wanted, deadlines that seemed impossible, and responsibilities without guidance. When I asked questions, he sighed as if my curiosity was an inconvenience. One day, after a small mistake in a report, he called me into his office and repeated the words that haunted me, telling me I lacked talent and confidence and that I was holding the team back. I walked out with burning eyes, holding my dignity together with effort. That night, I finally told Aisha the truth. I expected sympathy, maybe even anger on my behalf. Instead, she listened quietly, her eyes filled with understanding rather than judgment. She told me that sometimes people project their fears onto others, and sometimes strength grows in places where no one is looking. She reminded me that my worth could not be measured by one person's opinion. Her belief did not erase my pain, but it gave me space to breathe. Weeks passed, and I considered quitting. Every day felt like a test of endurance, and every night I questioned my choices. But responsibilities held me back. My sister's education depended on my income, and my parents, living far away, trusted me to stand strong. Love, again, demanded sacrifice. I decided to stay, not because I felt valued, but because walking away without trying felt like giving up on myself. I began to change quietly. I spent extra hours learning skills no one asked me to learn, reading, practicing, improving in silence. I observed how others worked, how they spoke in meetings, how they presented ideas. Slowly, I found my voice, not loud, but steady. I stopped apologizing for asking questions and started offering solutions instead. It was not a transformation anyone celebrated, but it was real. One afternoon, the company faced a serious problem when an important project began to fail. Confusion spread, deadlines were missed, and blame moved quickly. I saw an opportunity to help, not to prove my worth, but to protect the team from collapse. I worked through the night, reorganizing data, identifying errors, and proposing a clear plan. The next morning, I shared it with my boss, expecting dismissal. He read the report in silence. The room felt heavy. Finally, he looked up, surprised. He did not apologize or praise me openly, but he approved the plan. The project recovered slowly, and the tension eased. In meetings, my ideas were acknowledged. The word useless was not spoken again, but the memory remained, reminding me how fragile confidence can be. Through it all, Aisha remained my quiet strength. We talked about patience, about how love is not always dramatic but steady, about how respect begins within. Our bond grew not from grand promises, but from shared understanding. She taught me that romance can be gentle, built on trust and care rather than excitement alone. I learned to value presence over perfection. One evening, I visited my parents after a long time. My mother listened as I spoke about my struggles, her hands resting gently on mine. She told me that some battles are meant to teach humility, and some are meant to reveal resilience. My father reminded me that dignity is not given by bosses or titles, but by how you treat others and yourself. Their words felt like a quiet blessing. Months later, a new manager joined the company, bringing changes that shifted the atmosphere. My boss seemed less distant, perhaps humbled by circumstances of his own. One day, unexpectedly, he asked me to mentor a new employee. The request surprised me. As I guided someone else, I realized how far I had come. I spoke with patience, remembering how it feels to be lost and unheard. Standing by the window after work one day, I reflected on the journey. The pain, the doubt, the long nights, and the silent growth had shaped me into someone stronger, not harder, but kinder. I understood now that being called useless had not defined me. It had challenged me to find value within, independent of approval. When I finally told Aisha that I loved her, it was simple and honest. There were no dramatic gestures, just gratitude for her presence and respect for her strength. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the same quiet certainty. Our love was not a rescue, but a partnership built on mutual respect and shared patience. The story of my struggle did not end with revenge or triumph, but with understanding. I learned that hardships refine the heart, that misunderstandings can teach empathy, and that true success is not measured by praise, but by growth. To anyone listening who has ever been told they are not enough, remember this: your worth is not decided in a single moment or by a single voice. Sometimes, the hardest journeys lead to the deepest strength, and sometimes, love and patience are the greatest victories of all.